Concentrates the energy that will bring the demon world to this one. You can find your enemy there at that center.
Why have you helped us, Mephisto?
I wish I was sure whose side you're on.
I am just a neutral observer.
Alright, so Mephisto is actually the name of a demon. If for any of you guys that know, there's actually a character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe named Mephisto, and I think he's a demon in there as well. But I mean, as you can see, I'm just putting it out there, you guys. A lot of you guys talk about like trying to journey to like the center of the earth and what have you. Well, in this film, they're talking about a portal that opens up. All right. In this film, I've seen a few Masonic symbols and what have you. So journey at your own risk. All right. Me, I'm just gonna wait for the Lord because, well, quite frankly, that's a lot safer. Peace and blessings.
Attention, please. Operation may begin in half an hour.
God of the green, Lord of the forest, I offer you my sacrifice, I ask you for your blessing. You are the man in the trees, the green man of the forest, who brings life to the dawn in spring. You are the deer in rut, mighty horned one, who roams the autumn forest. The hunter, circling around the oak, the antlers of the wild stag, and the lifeblood that spills upon the earth each season. God of the green, Lord of the forest, I offer you my sacrifice, I ask only for your blessing. The name Cernunnos was one given to an extremely powerful and ancient deity that was widely worshipped throughout the world, and still is even to this day. Cernunnos can be translated to mean horned one in Celtic, and the horned god was just one of the many names that the deity went by. His origins can be traced back to nearly every culture throughout time, but the name and appearance changes. Cernunnos, as he's known in Celtic mythology, is perhaps the one we're most familiar with. He often appears as human, or at least human-like, with the antlers of a stag, sometimes even with horns that we'd associate with a satyr or a faun, resembling the Greek god of the wild Pan, and much like the Greek god, Cernunnos was seen to be a god of the wild, nature and fertility, amongst many other things. Being a deity so heavily associated with nature, he was often accompanied by a group of animals that were thought to be symbolic of the god. The stag, the bull, and the ram. He was also often seen holding a horned or spotted snake. Despite appearing as somewhat human, many believe that he wore a human face and did not take a particular interest in the concerns of humans. He was a protector of animals, often being called the Lord of Animals, and it's very likely that few hunted in his woods without appeasing the god first. There are those who saw his connection with animals as also being connected to our own deeply buried instinctual and animalistic natures. The earliest known depictions of Cernunnos were found in northern Italy, within the region of Val Camonica, which was under Celtic occupation from around 400 BC. His worship continued to grow in the region of Gaul, which covered a host of countries in Western Europe, and the images of the horned god can even be found in the French capital of Paris. While digging under the Cathedral of Notre Dame, an ancient pillar was found. It was named the Pillar of the Boatman, and it contains 16 carved images from the Greco-Roman pantheon, as well as some Celtic inscriptions. There is a carving of a man with horns, which has led many to believe that it was indeed the horned god Cernunnos. There are those who would argue that the image could have also been a depiction of the Greek god Pan. It's fairly difficult to read because of the tablet's age and the erosion and damage caused over time, but inscribed above the image in Latin is the word Nuno, which we can assume refers to the Celtic interpretation of the horned god. It's impossible for us to identify every horned god as Cernunnos, but the image on a pillar shows a torque, a piece of jewellery that was common amongst the Celtic people. It was often used to show a person of high status, and in some other cultures torques were thought to have mystical powers, being able to ward off curses and provide the wearer with protection during battle. With Cernunnos being a god that was thought to protect all animals, he can be found wearing a torque around his neck or hanging from his antlers, sometimes even just holding the piece of jewellery in one hand with a snake in the other. One of the most noticeable depictions of the horned god can be found on the Dunderstrap cauldron, where we see him holding a torque and a serpent, surrounded by numerous creatures, a dog, a raven and a stag, creatures that we often see appear in tales of mythology and folklore. Cernunnos was a god worshipped in both pagan and Wiccan practices. The cycle of the seasons in some Wiccan practices followed the relationship between the horned god and the goddess, with Cernunnos representing male energy. The fall symbolised the death of the horned god, as the land and vegetation became dormant during the autumn and winter. In the spring, however, the horned god was resurrected, where he would impregnate the fertile goddess of the land. This interpretation of the horned god and his relationship or marriage with the mother goddess is a relatively recent pagan and Wiccan concept, and was likely not one celebrated by the Celtic people. The ancient Celtic people would have seen and worshipped Cernunnos in a different manner. They would often attempt to commune with the god, seeking to receive some of his power, dressing themselves in animal skins and adorning skulls to honour the fallen wildlife. There are theories that the Celtic interpretation of the horned god could have evolved into what the pagans believed to be the Green Man, a spirit associated with nature and man's reliance on the cycle of growth that comes with spring. The Green Man sometimes appears as an ordinary man covered in leaves, but sometimes he takes the form of a walking tree, similar to the race of Ents that we see in Tolkien's Middle-earth. Cernunnos at times is a very misunderstood god for several reasons. Naturally, because of his horns and the occasional depiction of a large erect phallus, images of Cernunnos can be misinterpreted as a symbol of Satan. With the Christian church not taking kindly to the worship of other deities, they quickly labelled the pagan following of Cernunnos as devil worship, and they did their best to discredit all aspects of the horned god's character, constantly comparing him to Satan as an attempt to make it almost impossible to distinguish between the two. The depictions of Satan at the time included horns that resembled the Celtic deities. We can assume that this was done deliberately, and it certainly created confusion amongst those who had never heard of the Celtic interpretation of the horned god. There are some accounts that associate Cernunnos with the underworld, being somewhat of a guide to the dead. He was able to move with amazing stealth and grace, being able to walk through thickets and woods without being seen or heard. It's likely the way that he moved was considered otherworldly, and thus he was thought capable of walking in between the veil that separated the realm of the living from the realm of the dead. He was known to help guide the dead from their previous life to their new one, where he encouraged them to continue the pursuit of wisdom and happiness. Cernunnos being seen as a prosperous god ties in with his association with the Yule season, the 13th of December until the 25th, what many of us will consider Christmas Day. During this period he was referred to as the gifting stag, a mystical creature whose antlers were thought to symbolise the strange powers of the winter solstice season. It was thought that sometimes he would appear on the 26th of December, where he would encourage those who received gifts to give them away to those less fortunate than themselves. There isn't much, if any, Celtic literature surrounding Cernunnos, and this does lead to a lot of confusion around the god. What we do know for sure is that he was a god who went by many different names in many different cultures. Over the years he's been associated with a host of different things. He was the god of the wild, fertility, wealth, life and death, the hunt, and of course animals. Whether you believe Cernunnos was one of the many interpretations of the horned god, or the original, his influence and aspects can be seen in many different cultures. From Herne, the English god of the wild hunt, to Pan, the great god of the wild in Greek mythology, Pashupati, the lord of animals in Hindu mythology, and even Vles, the god of the forest in the Slavic pantheon. Sadly, Cernunnos is a god that we don't know much about, and the majority of that falls onto the Christian church, attempting to erase him from existence. As someone who's quite fond of the Greek god Pan, Kununos is also a deity that I'm naturally drawn to. I don't consider myself particularly well versed in Celtic mythology, or pagan and Wiccan practices, so if there's anything I'd missed, or you'd like to share your thoughts with me, I look forward to hearing from you in the comments below. As always, I've been your host, Mythology and Fiction Explained.
The world's biggest science experiment, the Large Hadron Collider, is housed in a 27-kilometre tunnel up to 175 metres beneath the Franco-Swiss border near Geneva. It was built by over 10,000 scientists and engineers from over 100 countries. Over 1,600 superconducting magnets keep the proton beams on track, most weighing over 27 tons. Superfluid helium-4 keeps the magnets at 1.9 Kelvin, that's minus 271 centigrade, colder than outer space. Having confirmed the existence of the Higgs boson, or God particle, the LHC is hunting for dark matter and extra dimensions. The standard model only explains around 5% of the universe. Dark matter and dark energy form 95%. The collider's energy has increased to recreate temperatures last seen billionths of a second after the Big Bang. And collision data is analyzed by the world's largest computing grid, connecting over 170 computing centers in 36 countries. 100 years ago, Einstein showed that mass warps the fabric of space-time. But why is gravity so weak? Why does a fridge magnet stick to the fridge despite the entire Earth pulling it down? String theory predicts that gravity leaks into many hidden dimensions, and scientists hope to detect particles moving into these dimensions. CERN is already planning a collider 4 times larger, with 7 times the energy. They hope to confirm some amazing theories, but even more, they hope to discover something entirely new.
There's a lot of talk, and maybe it's just crazy talk, that the energy levels in the LHC can actually cause the universe to rupture, and the whole global warming thing would be moot because there'd be no Earth anymore. What's the chance of that happening?
Basically zero. And the
But we're talking about hundreds of billions nanoseconds. Basically zero is still a pretty large number.
I think as a scientist, if when you calculate numbers, even if it's 1 with 100 zeros after it, one chance in 1 with 100 zeros after it, it's hard to say it's absolutely zero. But when the probabilities are so low, it is effectively zero. So that's where my basically zero comes from.
Okay.
But we actually know experimentally that it's not going to happen because we observe cosmic ray collisions in the atmosphere of the Earth from cosmic rays coming from extragalactic sources all the time, every day. If you put your hand out, there are cosmic ray particles passing through your hand right this very minute. And many of those collisions are much, much more energetic than anything we're going to make at the LHC. And we've looked across the universe with the telescopes that we have and with all of our capability, and we've never seen evidence for something as violent as this prediction that it would swallow the Earth and destroy everything we know. So I think we're all pretty confident that we don't have to worry about that.
And your explanation of why the Earth isn't going to be torn away?
Well, I think that empirical argument is very strong, that if it was going to happen, it would have happened. This kind of experiment has been going on for billions of years all over the universe, and so there's been plenty of chance if there was some route to a catastrophe to already get there.
How did we get here? Let's roll back a few days. This is CERN, the nuclear research laboratory on the border of France and Switzerland. It features the most powerful particle accelerator on Earth, the Large Hadron Collider, or LHC. What does it do? Well, it accelerates and collides particles at 99.99% the speed of light. And maybe it could produce the very first lab-grown black hole. How big would that black hole be? What precautions would you need to take not to get sucked in? And how long would it take to destroy the entire planet? This is What If, and here's what would happen if a black hole opened at CERN. Black holes. Gravitational matter devouring monsters traveling across the universe on their own terms. Some of them are so big they could gobble up the sun in a day. Could scientists create one of those at CERN? Theoretically, yes. But could a lab-made black hole be the end of Earth? Let's see. The LHC is a 27-kilometer ring of superconducting magnets. Inside, it accelerates particles to move at almost the speed of light. These particles are bound to collide, and when they do, they produce enough energy to create new particles. We're talking about very small amounts of energy here. The numbers are so tiny that scientists came up with a new unit of energy to measure particle energies at that scale. It's called the tera-electron volt. 14 tera-electron volts give you new particles. 1 followed by 19 zeros of tera-electron volts would give you a black hole. Already picturing doomsday scenarios? That's very much in the spirit of What If, but that's not how it would go down. If one of the experiments at the LHC ended with scientists creating a black hole, that black hole would be microscopic, as in quantum level small. It would have a mass about 40 million times smaller than the E. coli bacterium. It wouldn't get out of the accelerator and rampage across the planet, chewing up everything in its way. Well, it could get out, but because of its laughably small gravitational pull, it wouldn't attract a single piece of matter. The black hole would lose its energy through what's known as Hawking radiation long before it could gain any substantial mass, as if it never existed in the first place. Even when folks at CERN build a next-generation lab, the future circular collider that will outpower the Large Hadron Collider, will still be pretty safe. For a lab-produced black hole to potentially cause any damage, it would need to have a mass of at least 0.00002 grams. That's about 50 times smaller than the mass of an ant. It would take that black hole 9 octillion years to reach the size of 1 kilogram, and another decillion years to swallow up the Earth. The whole process would take longer than the age of the universe. I'd say no need to worry about it at all. The Earth doesn't get destroyed every time physicists do something cool, unfortunately. But if something does go wrong and you find yourself one-on-one with a black hole, don't panic. Tune in to our new show, How to Survive. There, we've got you covered for any life-threatening scenario to help you survive whatever awaits you.
My name is Oliver Datzka and I'm from Austria, and I have a question for you. Do you think that when the LHC will start, there is the possibility that there come little black holes?
Hi, Oliver. So you'd like to know if there is a possibility of a black hole being created from the Large Hadron Collider, the LHC? So far, we think not. The reason we think not is that nature has already done this experiment. There are natural accelerators out there in space that are far more powerful than anything we can build here on Earth, or even imagine ever building here on Earth. And so the experiment has been done already by nature. And so if there are black holes being made, they're small and they don't bother anyone. But more likely, there are no such black holes being made by those particle collisions. Now, of course, we would certainly be very interested to find out if there were, but we're not expecting any.
All right, so we're going to be talking about CERN today. First things first is I want to say is, you know, it's written in Scripture that the knowledge of man is foolish before God. So listening to these scientists and what have you, speculate there being pretty much an impossible chance of CERN creating a black hole and bringing our planet to oblivion. You guys, they either don't know the answers or they're hiding the truth. And, you know, Stephen Hawking was very outspoken about a few things before he passed about his concerns with CERN, but I'll get into that later. You know, when these scientists tell you that there's nothing to worry about, you know, does that truly mean that there's nothing to worry about? That's something you should think about. Anytime somebody has, you know, really said that there's nothing to worry about without anybody, you know, really predominantly posing a direct question, you know, there's generally something to worry about. I remember, you know, a lot of the internet has been censored and been scrubbed. There was a scientist that people called Mom. And I can tell you that what they spoke about was there was this scientist there, they activated CERN, and all the power went out of the building. But when the power came back on, you know, it was a matter of moments, the power came back on. The scientist that everybody nicknamed Mom, her clothes were just laying on the ground. She was gone. Okay. Now, this is either a rapture scenario or this is a scenario where something really bad happened with CERN. She got, you know, caught in the machine or what have you. But she was gone, you guys, and they called her Mom. One thing that I think is interesting is there's a series of changes that's happened in our time-space continuum called the Mandela effects or quantum, you know, quantum pollution. And either in this video or the sequel to this video, I will put in some a more thorough explanation of what a Mandela effect is. But I will tell you that it's interesting that when you this scientist that they called Mom that disappeared, when you go to your cell phone, you know, each of the corresponding numbers, you know, is alphanumeric. So when you punch in Mom on your phone, you will come up with 666. It is also the word that is written under the Wendy's logo of the young girl and what have you on the cup. Now it says Mom in Mom underneath her picture. And I will say that back when I was working at a transitional housing shelter as security, I dated a young lady named Brittany, and across the street from her house was a blue house that I felt like I seen before, oddly, even though I'd never been in that area. And what was spray painted on the side of that house in real big letters was Mom, M-O-M. So those are some strange things, you know. A lot of times in that point in time, I was real sensitive to dimensional shifts and what have you. I can actually sense them in lifetime at that point in time in my life. But yes, that's just something I want to bring about. There's a scientist missing named Mom. They never found her, and they removed those stories off of YouTube and off the internet. So it's no longer there. In terms of CERN, when we think of apocalyptic scenarios, it's written in scripture that an angel was given a key to the bottomless pit. So if there's a key to the bottomless pit, okay, would this not indicate a doorway, as keys open doors? Okay, doors are portals in scripture. All right, and CERN is, as the Greek god CERNUNOS. CERN is for the Greek god CERNUNOS. All right. CERN is the largest machine on Earth. It's a 17-mile radius, and it can generate 100,000 times the Earth's gravitational pull. Okay, so with good reason, Stephen Hawking voiced his concern, saying the God particle found by CERN could destroy the universe. Okay, and that's just interesting in the fact of CERN being what it is and their logo being Kali Ma, who is known as the Destroyer. All right, their mascot is Kali Ma, and she is known as the Destroyer. Also, astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson told Eugene Merriman on his Star Talk radio program that the experiment could literally cause the planet to explode. All right. So there are also another short list of scientists who believe that CERN is a really bad idea, but these guys are telling you it is safe. Just like, when you watch about the vaccine, the vaccine is safe. And if there are any negative reactions, it was just the person's fault, right? So it's just something to think about. Let's see, I have a little note down here that 1 year after CERN's grand opening, Sergio Bertolucci, former director of research and scientific computing of the facility, grabbed headlines when he told British tabloids that the super collider could open otherworldly doors to other dimensions for a very tiny lapse of time, mere fractions of a second. However, that may be just enough time to peer into this open door, either by getting something out of it or sending something into it. Of course, added Bertolucci, after this tiny moment, the door would again shut, bringing us back to our normal four-dimensional world. It would be a major leap in our vision of nature. And of course, there would be no risk to the stability of our world. Okay. Astonishingly, astrophysical observations have demonstrated that all the visible physical matter accounts for only 4% of the universe. All right. Now the race is on at CERN to find those elusive particles or phenomena responsible for dark matter, which is equative to 23%, and dark energy, which is equative to 73%. Essentially, what the CERN experiment hopes to achieve is to separate, by the way of atom smasher, the invisible dark matter, which has been described as the very glue that holds together our visible reality. There's just one problem with this experiment. Nobody has any idea what the consequences will be if the goal is achieved. So with that being said, you guys, I do remember there being many articles and what have you, which have been scrubbed off the internet also about antimatter or dark matter being completely unstable. And not unstable in the sense of like just merely an explosion, but it's the explosion in mid-combustion is the equative to the chaos of antimatter. And they want to draw it in and use it as an energy source for the planet. So they've also found, which has been scrubbed off the internet that I remember reading, is that they have found that scientists have mentioned that don't believe in God have mentioned that, other entities from the other side, whatever that be, spirits, what have you, have an attraction to this type of matter, so that when they open those portals and it crosses over into this, this dimension or what have you, these other spirits, cross over with it in order to grab the matter. So we end up with spirits on this other side, of the plane. And some of the scientists were getting ideas from these spirits. regarding CERN. So it's just something to think about, all right? And these things have been wiped off the internet. So the logo for CERN, okay, is obviously, it shows a spiral up. And the slogan of Obama's college was spiral up. He's always boasting about it. So, when we think of an angel that has a key to the bottomless pit, and Obama's name is Barack Obama, one of the angels that fell, okay, one of the angels that fell in Enoch's account, his name was Barakil, okay, something to think about. The logo for CERN, the spiral up symbol creates a 666, okay, the mascot is Kali Ma, the goddess of death, to represent, and that's the particle, and the goddess of death is used to represent the so-called God particle. Something to think about, all right? What does that tell you about these secret societies? Is that they truly believe that death is the God, they believe that death is the only one and true God, okay? That's just something to think about. They don't believe in the Most High God, but they do believe in, the God of death, all right? So that's their logo, but they call it the God particle. So that shows you the confusion, all right? The last thing I'm going to list for now is that there is no Democratic debate for when they start this CERN machine, okay? So, everybody, if something goes wrong or whatever, with some, astrophysicists' accounts, the world can be wiped out in a blip, everybody in it, all right? And if you remember Spider-Man, the Marvel Spider-Man movie, they used to talk about the blip, okay, where everybody disappeared off the planet. Well, half the population disappeared off the planet. That correlates with the snap that Thanos did in Endgame. So that's kind of like CERN. You have to think about it. Like, there's a lot of things going on with this machine and what have you. So I'm going to leave that at this point for now. I'm going to play you some more clips. Peace and blessings be with you all.
I used to be a respected scientist at my name on both sides of buildings.
You wanted a smaller quantum tunnel. This is smaller.
Whoops, sorry. My bad.
I think it has a flare.
All right, hold on. Shoot. All right, controls online.
I told you. You die for that.
The collection unit activates when you decouple. It should automatically start absorbing quantum healing particles.
Also, make sure you stay out of the tardigrade field. They're cute, but they'll eat you. And don't get sucked into a time vortex. We won't be able to save you.
Okay. Going subatomic in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, Scott, this is a mic check.
What'd you do?
2 mustard, please. Thanks, Mama. Mic check. 1, 2. 1, 2. How's everybody doing tonight in the quantum realm?
Scott, we read you.
I just want to make sure.
Well, not yet. We're watching every satellite on both planets.
Where'd he go? What is it?
Healing particle secured for our new ghost friend.
Great.
Same energy signature.
Preparing for re-entry in
10 times.
5,
Where'd he go?
All right.
4,
We're coming.
3,
We're hungry. Let's go. Hello? Aha, very funny. Hank, quit screwing around. You told me yourself not to screw around. Hank! Hey, babe!
You okay? Steady, Quill.
Janet!
There's no one here.
Guys. Guys. Hey, seriously, don't joke around. Bring me up. Let's go. Guys! Medic!
Control. Code red.
What? What?
Nope. This is no place to die.
I don't know what's happening. I don't know.
don't want to go. I don't want to go. No, 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 no. No.
You did it.
Sam! Sam, where you at?
What is this? What the hell is happening?
Oh, God.
We'll always love you. We'll always love you. Bittersweet memories. That is all I'm taking with me.
Gone, but not forgotten.
Thanks to Kenneth Lim and Vihan Ramamurthy for their help with that touching video tribute.
This year has been nothing short of...
It is crazy. It's like insane.
Jason,
What?
no swearing.
Yeah, it's like the last day of school. We're good.
Historic. Over 5 years ago, half of all life in the universe, including our own Midtown High, was wiped from existence. But then, 8 months ago, a band of brave heroes brought us back. They called it the blip. Those of us who blipped away came back the same age, but our classmates that didn't blip had grown 5 years older.
Yeah, like my little brother is now older than me.
Yeah, it's math. And even though we had blipped away halfway through the school year and had already taken midterms, the school made us start the whole year over from the beginning.
It's totally unfair. It's not right.
Tigers, it's been a long, dramatic, somewhat confusing road. As we draw this year to a close, it's time to move on to a new phase of our lives.
Pray nothing crazy happens again, because are the Avengers even like a thing anymore? Does anyone even have a plan?
I have a plan. Okay, first, I'm gonna sit next to MJ on the flight. Second, I'm gonna buy a dual headphone adapter and watch movies with her the whole time.
Okay.
3, when we go to Venice, Venice is super famous for making stuff out of glass, right?
True.
So I'm gonna buy her a black dahlia necklace because her favorite flower is the black dahlia because of, well...
The murder.
The murder. 4, when we go to Paris, I'm gonna take her to the top of the Eiffel Tower, give her the necklace, and then 5, I'm gonna tell her how I feel. And then 6, hopefully she tells me she feels the same way.
Oh, don't forget step 7.
Step 7?
Don't do any of that.
Why?
Because we're gonna be bachelors in Europe, Peter.
Ned.
Look, I may not know much, but I do know this. Europeans love Americans.
Really?
And more than half of them are women.
Okay, sure, but I really like MJ, man, okay? She's awesome, she's super funny in a kind of dark way, and sometimes I catch her looking at me and I feel like I've stood up way too, she's coming over. Just don't say anything.
What up, dorks? Excited about the science trip?
Hey, yeah, we're just talking about the trip.
Yeah, and Peter's plan.
You have a plan?
I don't have a plan.
No, he's just gonna collect tiny spoons when we're traveling to other countries.
Like a grandmother?
I'm not collecting tiny spoons, he's collecting tiny spoons.
Oh, okay. Well, that was a real roller coaster. By the way, travel tip, you should probably download a VPN on your phone just so that the government can't track you while we're abroad.
Smart. Will do.
Oh. Dude, I think that went really great.
Bring me down. The love is too high. Bring me down. Can't none bring me down. I said, bring me down. Can't none bring me down. The love is too high. Bring me down. Can't none bring me down. I said, clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Bring me down, can't none bring me down. The love is too.
Welcome to I'm Your Target Demographic, and every Wednesday we explain something, either a fandom, a hobby, whatever. Today we are explaining a phrase, and gosh, I don't know how to really start this, but let's talk about the Mandela effect. And it all starts with Nelson Mandela, even though it has very little to do with him. So let's start at the beginning. Nelson Mandela was a South African political activist who was imprisoned for 27 years and then became president of South Africa. However, some people, actually a lot of people, have these memories of him actually dying while in prison. These memories are absolutely fake and untrue because he went on to become the president of South Africa. So how could they remember him dying while in prison? There are many people that have shared stories about remembering seeing his widow on television and the exact details of his death. This was the first incident to really gain traction where a lot of people misremembered something. That a massive amount of people all thought that the past was something different than it really was. And someone actually coined the term Mandela effect. It was a paranormal consultant named Fiona Broom that coined this term. Another incident more recently that caused people to massively misremember something was the book series The Berenstain Bears. Now, I read these books when I was a kid, and I remember vividly that it was Berenstein, or Stein, E-I-N. But it turns out that it's actually spelled A-I-N, Berenstain Bears. And a lot of people misremember that, even though it was a book that you read constantly and you were constantly looking at, everyone misremembers. And here's one more example just to settle this. Let's talk about Monopoly. Let's talk about the Monopoly Man, Uncle Pennybags. That's such a weird name. If you were asked to describe him, and someone asked me, can you describe the Monopoly Man? And I said, yeah, he has a top hat and like a monocle, and nope, he does not have a monocle. So the real Monopoly Man does not have a monocle. Maybe we're getting that mixed up with the peanut guy, I don't know, but that's something that a lot of people say.
What did it cost?
Everything. Iron Man.
Bittersweet memories. That is all I'm taking with me. And I will always love you. I will
Gone, but not forgotten.
Thanks to Kenneth Lim and Vihan Ramamurthy for their help with that touching video tribute.
This year has been nothing short of...
It is crazy. It's like insane.
Jason,
What?
no swearing.
Yeah, it's like the last day of school. We're good.
Historic. Over 5 years ago, half of all life in the universe, including our own Midtown High, was wiped from existence. But then, 8 months ago, a band of brave heroes brought us back. They called it the blip. Those of us who blipped away came back the same age, but our classmates that didn't blip had grown 5 years older.
Yeah, like my little brother is now older than me.
Yeah, it's math. And even though we had blipped away halfway through the school year and had already taken midterms, the school made us start the whole year over from the beginning.
It's totally unfair. It's not right.
Tigers, it's been a long, dramatic, somewhat confusing road. As we draw this year to a close, it's time to move on to a new phase of our lives.
Pray nothing crazy happens again, because are the Avengers even like a thing anymore? Does anyone even have a plan?
I have a plan.
Secondary ignition. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Peter, you don't have to stay behind. I can do it.
It's okay. I've made up my mind.
I'll put the goober in and take over the beam. After you're gone, I'll blow it up. Good luck, guys.
They know we're here.
Nice to see you again, Peter.
Oh, these guys are the pits.
Why is this always difficult?
We good, Peter! Any last words?
Can I get a minute to think about it? You have a pen?
Goodbye, Peter Parker.
Who did that?
Miles?
Spider-Man?
Wow, Miles! You're doing it on command!
It's about time, right?
Miles! Look who's here!
Figured it out.
I love you. I'm so proud of you. Do I all kids?
Oh yeah, I forgot about her.
Well, that doesn't look promising.
No, it doesn't.
I've got genetic matches. Hold on. It's too risky.
Shut up and turn it up.
Get to a shelter. I'll be right there.
I tried the school, but I can't get through.
Guys, are you seeing this?
Looks like our dimensions are coming to us.
Does look cool though, right?
We gotta get back up there.
In the preface to his new book Stars, Cambridge cosmologist and theoretical physicist Stephen Hawking says that the God particle, a recent human discovery, may in fact lead to the destruction of the universe itself. Questioning the safety and stability of the God particle, Hawking says the entire universe could be at risk from a simple mishap. He wrote, "The Higgs potential has the worrisome feature that it might become metastable at energies above 100 billion giga-electron volts. Hawking warns, will lead to the universe undergoing a catastrophic vacuum decay, with the bubble of the true vacuum expanding at the speed of light and wiping out the universe. Has already much to worry in an age that is proving cataclysmic in many ways. His followers have been alarmed by Hawking's warnings before, for instance on artificial intelligence, invading aliens and man-made viruses wiping out the human race. The sobering thought about his dark foreboding about God particle is that the universe may not end anytime soon, as a particle accelerator twice the size of Earth would have to melt if it were to touch the threshold being talked about before the Higgs field can be expected to destabilize. There is little chance of that happening because building such a huge particle accelerator looks for beyond the world's payment capacity. However, it will be a pity if such Cassandra-like warnings put off governments and the tax-paying public from further testing with the Large Hadron Collider at CERN. The LHC has got $13.5 billion to prove the existence of the God particle and is double its power. There is physics yet to be discovered. Stretching research to further our knowledge of the creation of the universe has been man's greatest endeavor. This should not stop, although great minds are doubting man's ability to control experiments in the quest for truth. News Desk, Mango News. Speculations are rife that the dashing dynamo of Indian cricket Yuvraj Singh is all set to join the Saffron Brigade sooner than later.
No character in the history of all religions is as fierce as the Hindu goddess Kali. In India, Kali is known as the Dark Goddess. When the Western scholars encountered Kali, their first reaction was that of shock and surprise. For one thing, they had trouble swallowing the idea that the female could be divine. The closest they had come to such a deity was the kindly and virginal Mother Mary. In the 20th century, with the rise of women's rights, feminists came to view Kali as the embodiment of feminine power. They found her to be liberating. The image of Kali that exists in the West is rather different from the way most Indians see her. Kali, the name which literally means time in Sanskrit, is an intensely frightening and the most powerful manifestation of Shakti. There are many depictions of the different forms of Kali. The most common form often shows Kali as black, naked, with angry red sunken eyes, wearing skulls around her neck as jewelry and limbs around her waist. Her blackness represents that she is nirguna, meaning beyond all qualities of nature. She has 4 arms, showing aspects of both creation and destruction. With a blood sword in one of her hands, she defeats the enemies and carries the head of a demon on the other hand. She holds the bowl on the third hand, where the blood of the enemy is collected and the last is held out in blessing. She has an open mouth with blood drooling down her tongue while she stands on the body of her husband, Lord Shiva. Although Kali is associated with blood, death, and destruction, she is also seen as a mother figure and often referred to as Ma Kali, meaning Mother Kali. Kali is the dramatic expression of a fierce mother's anger and the feminine power that awakens to attack those who threaten her children. The birth or origin of Kali is popularly known through the story of her fight in Markandeya Purana. In Hindu mythology, Raktabij was a demon or asura who had been given a boon by Lord Brahma that every time a drop of his blood fell on the ground, a new version of his own would be created. Having received this boon, he made the life of people and gods miserable, more so with this power to produce more Raktabij every time he sheds a drop of his blood. Hence the gods reached out to goddess Durga or Shakti for help. Armed with all the weapons, the goddess charged at the demon. But as soon as she wounded him with her sword and his blood fell on the earth, the demon multiplied. With more attempts at killing Raktabij, he kept on multiplying. Huge armies of Raktabij were formed by the drops of blood which fell on the earth. Enraged by this, the Devi took the fierce and infuriated form of Kali. She went on to destroy the demon with her sword in her hand. She slayed each demon and collected their bloods in her bowl and drank it immediately. Soon she finished the whole army of Raktabij and only the real Raktabij was left. Then she killed him down and drank his blood until he fell down lifeless. Not realizing that the real Raktabij was dead, the goddess continued her destruction and drinking blood of the innocent. She continued to kill anybody that appeared her way. Seeing this, the gods became extremely worried and approached Lord Shiva for help. Lord Shiva went and laid down amongst the corpses where the goddess was madly dancing for blood. Accidentally, Kali stepped on Shiva and soon she realized her mistake. It was then she stuck out her tongue out of embarrassment and calmed down. She was ashamed that her bloodlust had prevented her from recognizing her husband. Soon she came back to her original form and the destruction was stopped. Shiva lying at the feet also symbolizes the supremacy of nature over man. It clearly shows that without Kali or Shakti, even a powerful force like Lord Shiva is inert. Kali is associated with many different forms and stories. Some of her forms are Mahakali, Bhadrakali, Dakshinakali and Chandika. The image of Kali has travelled from the east to the west and has made home in the eyes of many. But in truth, Kali does not exist in front of us. She exists in the space behind our eyes. She exists in our minds. And in our minds, she has many shapes, forms, and many meanings.
All right, so here I have a little excerpt. I filmed my TV here. I was watching an anime. This anime is called Demon City. All right, Demon City, right? It's like an old school anime, and I just found it peculiar that, you know, in this clip, okay, the young man journeys, the warrior, he journeys, and he's went through a portal and he found himself looking for this demon, and basically he comes to, basically what it is the center of the earth, and it is a portal, basically. And I just want to bring this to mind that when we speak of portals in the Bible, they are called doors, okay? Portals are doors, okay? And they're throughout the earth. In fact, in Kansas, you know, down here where I live in Missouri, there's a portal. I can literally take you through one, and you will not understand, like, okay, how did I get over here when I started here? Dead serious. But they're throughout the earth. But this portal specifically connects the spirit world to the physical world. And this guy was opening up the portal. The demon was opening up the portal from the spirit world, the demonic spirit world, to manifest in the physical world. The reason why I bring this about, you guys, is the fact that when we talk about CERN, right, which the logo has 666, Barack Obama went to a college, and he was always touting his college slogan was spiral up. When you spiral up, you make the number 666. So that's what he meant when he was saying spiral up, okay? Also, his name is Barack. One of the angels that fell, one of the angels that fell, his name was Barakiel. Something to think about. All right. Now, the mascot for CERN is the deity Kali, and Kali, you know, basically, I don't know. She murders. Okay, she like kills people and what have you. And it's also a fighting style that people do with knives and what have you. But that's the logo for CERN. Now, CERN originally, the first CERN that was originally built, the Higgs boson, what it was to do was to collide atoms using magnets at high velocities, so that when the atoms collided together, it would split the atom. Scientists found that when they were able to split the atom, that it would create doors or portals. So that's what makes this interesting. I see many Masonic, you know, signs up in this movie and what have you. But what I want to bring about is that the first particle collider, okay, was built in St. Pouilly, France. All right, and you know, in St. Pouilly, France, you know, underneath the city, and it was built underground, underneath the city, underground. In St. Pouilly, France, okay, the Greek god that represents that area, that the deity that represents that area is Apollo, and that's why it's Pouilly, France. Okay, Saint Pouilly, France, really is representing the deity Apollo. Okay, and Apollo is a Greek god, and he was the Greek god of the underworld. So it's just, you know, peculiar that they built this particle collider that creates doors underground, underneath the city. Okay, and when we look at the word Apollo, what does it remind you of? Okay, it should remind you in Revelations, okay, there's a fallen angel named Apollyon, and he's known as the Destroyer. So right here in this cartoon, they were up on this game trying to create these things in these secret societies for a minute, okay? And this guy is saying Mephisto, who is actually a demon, okay? If you look in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Mephisto is a demon, right? And Mephisto is telling them that, hey, man, like, this is a portal that connects the demonic spirit world to the physical world. And it's basically at the center of the earth, all right? So now that they have these particle colliders and what have you, okay, and they originated, building that, in that area, this is more than just technology. It is technology merged with sorcery. And they've been doing this, for a minute. A lot of people are not up on game that the fact that not only did Bill Gates create the internet, but now the internet is basically the connected with CERN. Like it was the company of CERN, the CERN who built like the particle collider, they're connected with the internet. So the internet works through CERN. So when we say intranet, internal, okay, internal network, all right? So the internet is a spiritual technology, a spiritual network that links, the fourth dimensional realm, which pertains to time. So the internet is a lot more intricate than what you would think when you just go on Google or whatever. Okay, you're dealing with information from different points in time, not just by date, but it is actually spiritual technology. Okay, so I just want to point that out about how CERN kind of, creating doorways and what have you. What was the motive behind them creating this Stargate, if you will? Okay, and with that being said, it being the center of Earth, it's written in scripture, an angel was given a key to the bottomless pit. Okay, so when you think about the bottomless pit, okay, and this innocent anime, all right, from back in the day, is showing that the demonic realm connects with the physical plane, okay, from the core of the earth. So you guys, like, just something to think about. People aren't just creating these things doing scientists. It's the blind leading the blind. That's why I tell all of you, man, like, Christ is real, okay? The spiritual world is very real. And what's happening in the earth today is that sin is rising up because shortly after they built CERN, they created a tunnel and they had a huge parade, okay? I think it was in like Switzerland. And the whole theme of the parade was the gates of hell are open, okay? It was like some type of underground, subway system, all right? And I forget how it connects, but that also connects with CERN also. So that's something to think about, all right? Peace and blessings be with you all. I'm out.
What's ahead of us?
It's where you will find Rebi Ra.
Mephisto.
There is a focal point at the very center of this labyrinth where Rebi Ra concentrates the energy that will bring the demon world into this one. You can find your enemy there at that center.
Why have you helped us, Mephisto?
I wish I was sure whose side you're on.
I am just a neutral observer.
All right, so Mephisto is actually the name of a demon. If for any of you guys that know, there's actually a character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe named Mephisto, and I think he's a demon in there as well. But I mean, as you can see, I'm just putting it out there, you guys. A lot of you guys talk about like trying to journey to like the center of the earth and what have you. Well, in this film, they're talking about a portal that opens up. All right. In this film, I've seen a few Masonic symbols and what have you. So journey at your own risk. All right. Me, I'm just going to wait for the Lord because, well, quite frankly, that's a lot safer. Peace and blessings be with you all. I'm out.
The world is a vampire sent to drain secret destroyers hold you up to the flames. And what do I get for my pain? Betrayed desires and a piece of a game. Despite all my rage, I am still just a rat in a
everything high end. I'm with the Mozzie. I pop a half a perk, make a deposit. I am not from the earth. Stay on my fly shit. I'm flying private on my Dubai shit. On the Ducati, stunting on them. All of you niggas, my little homies. Here's some knowledge for you. Stop trying to wipe with that bitch. All the vampires know that we don't go to sleep. We stay up all night. Pop me 2 or 3. The exotic type. Everything high. You see the stars. And my rich and million cost more than your car. Everything high. Everything high. And you fake niggas should retire. And you fuck niggas should get fired up. Don't fuck with fair niggas. They be wild up.
Put up, everything high, yeah. I want a bar again, about to hit Cali. I want an H pill, I want a Miley. I'ma get CC, front these diamonds, eyes locked in. I would climb in, peep out the climax. Put the doors in knapsacks, put some ice on the base, put the hunters in gym clips.
Created of nature. He was often accompanied by a group of animals that were thought to be symbolic of the god. The stag, the bull, and the ram. He was also often seen holding a horned or spotted snake. Despite appearing as somewhat human, many believe that he wore a human face and did not take a particular interest in the concerns of humans. He was a protector of animals, often being called the Lord of Animals, and it's very likely that few hunted in his woods without appeasing the god first. There are those who saw his connection with animals as also being connected to our own deeply buried instinctual and animalistic natures, connected to our own deeply buried instinctual and animalistic natures, connected to our own deeply buried instinctual and animalistic natures.
I'm still just a rat in the cage. Then someone will say what is lost can never be saved. Despite all my rage, I'm still just a rat in a cage. Now I'm naked, nothing but an animal. But can you fake it?
For untold eons, the great Deva had warred against the mighty demons. Finally, the gods were tired and stopped for but a moment to rest. Yet the demon king, known as Mahishasura, saw this and took the Deva's moment of weakness to build himself a great army. With thousands of demons at his back, the Demon King declared himself the ruler of the entire universe, heaven, and earth. The gods could not stand for this, and Vishnu was the first to act. In his anger, a great light sprang from his forehead. Seeing this, Lord Shiva was the next to act, sending forth his own light. One by one, the gods stepped forward and beams of bright, blinding light shot forward. The light of the gods joined in one place, and from here, the image of a woman began to appear. Yet this was no ordinary woman. Her skin was as black as night, and she had 10 arms. She wore a necklace of skulls and a skirt of arms. In her hand, she held a gleaming sword. The gods saw this new Deva and stepped forward to praise her. They bestowed gifts of weapons and jewelry. Lord Shiva gave her a trident, while Lord Indra gifted her lightning that matched his own. But soon the demon armies appeared and saw this mighty new Deva. They charged forward, and the rest of the gods cheered for her victory, but they did not know what they had unleashed. The dark goddess Kali turned to her approaching enemy, and the land was filled with a shrieking roar of laughter. As the demons met her in battle, the great Kali began to swing her arms, slashing the demons or picking them up and hurling them through the air. She swung her mighty sword, and scores of demons would fall, their heads severed from their bodies. Others were lifted high into the sky, thrown great distances. Some were merely trampled or crushed beneath Kali's fists. So great was the onslaught that the demon army wavered, fear in their dark eyes. Yet the monsters were given new strength when the great Raktabisha stepped onto the battlefield. The demons let this warrior through, and he stepped forward to fight the dark goddess. Kali swung her blades and smashed with her fists, but every time she drew blood from the evil Raktabisha, more demons would spring from the place where it fell. These evil spirits joined the battle, and for a time it seemed that surely Kali would be overwhelmed, as the demons that were born from Raktabisha's blood were strong and evil. Finally, the dark goddess lifted Raktabisha high over her head. She bit deep into his flesh, drinking the blood so that it wouldn't fall to the ground. The demon roared in pain until his voice was drowned out as Kali ate him. So the death and destruction continued. The demons tried to fight and defeat the great dark goddess, but they each fell to her horrible onslaught. Finally, the Demon King took notice and came to his army's aid. He took the form of a great buffalo and charged at Kali. The earth shook with the dance of battle and the roar of war. Kali would not waver, even as the Demon King tried to defeat her. He used every weapon he had, yet nothing could defeat the dark goddess. Finally, Kali plunged her spear deep into the king, killing him. The other gods began to celebrate, for the dark goddess had won a mighty victory. They looked out on the fields of battle, on the thousands of demons that lay dead before them, yet still, Kali would not stop, swinging her mighty weapons and smashing the bodies of demons beneath her. Her shrieking laughter filled them with fear as she continued to fight, even though few demons still remained. Lord Shiva finally stepped forward, wishing to stop the insane bloodlust of Kali. He lay down amongst the corpses of the demons and he waited. As Kali continued to fight, she finally stepped onto Shiva and looked down. The sight of the beautiful god and the sea of demon corpses gave her pause. She looked into his eyes and saw the eyes of her one true love. She stopped, realizing that she stepped on him with her bare feet, an act of disgrace in the Hindu culture. She felt shame, and finally, the battle came to an end. Thank you so much for watching this Tales of Earth video. If you want to see more like this, be sure to subscribe and let us know what you want to see next in the comments down below.
town that the LHE complex is situated is called Saint Genus Puli, which is in France, okay? But in the Roman times, it was called Apolliacum. And the town in Apolliacum, there was an ancient temple that was built there and dedicated to Apollo, okay? Apollo is the god of oracles, prophecy, healing, archery, music and arts, sunlight, knowledge, herds, and flocks, and protecting of the young. Okay? Apolliacum had a temple to Apollo. Apollo is the god of oracles or prophecy, and he was also a hunter, right, with the bow and arrow. And these correlations are the correlations of the Antichrist. The Antichrist is known as a mighty hunter. Okay, keep in mind, like Nimrod, the Cushite, it says that he waxed great or became mighty before the Lord. Okay, and if you pay attention, another subtle way that they sneak it in on us is through comedy. If you remember the hit comedy show, okay, of a cartoon character named Archer, okay, Archer is given a nod to the so-called mighty hunter. Okay, Nimrod was a mighty hunter, and Apollo was the god of archery. All right, so it can be seen that Nimrod, King of Tyre, these archetypes were possessed by Apollyon, okay, indicated of Lucifer, who is a personification of Greco god Apollo, the oracle and hunter. Of Apollo's notable lovers was the goddess Coronis, meaning curved one, set in the constellation as Corvus, meaning crow, indicating death. All right. The subliminal tie-ins with this indicate notable Marvel characters such as Thanos, who was in love with Lady Death in the comics. These would echo inspiration from Apollo, who consorted with Coronis, often sending a white raven to spy on her, whom was his lover. Also, given the situation that Coronis indicating the crow and the crow indicating death, that Coronis would be an equilative to corona, as in coronavirus. When the words are blended together, you arrive to Corvus, which indicates the crow or death. Corvus is the root word of a fictional character in the film Underworld, whom was the offspring of both the vampire and the Lycan bloodlines, in which all bear the last name Corvinus, meaning crow. Michael Corvinus was a human line whom later falls in love with Selene, a death dealer who was a vampire. It was forbidden for Lycans and vampires to fall in love, but they did and were hunted. This does not change that Selene, being a death dealer, in truth represents Lady Death. And Michael Corvinus, a Lycan, who were formerly a slave colony for the vampires, represents Jacob. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about Billy Boy Gates. Who would okay? be subject
Bill Gates'
to death.
father was a known eugenicist.
In the
He's the one
Twilight,
that
when a
developed
Lycan
Planned Parenthood.
becomes
and you
a
never
lover
see
of the
Planned
lead
Parenthood in
actress,
the suburbs. So
who
what
is
does that tell you about the
indicative of
Israelites?
Eve,
Yes,
who is written
they were
is
black,
the mother of all
right?
living.
When you look at the images that I have for you here, who do you see in there? Black people, okay? That's what people need to know. So with the whole race war and things like that, people need to know that they're barking up the wrong tree, because little do they know, okay, black people belong to the 10 lost tribes of Israel. All right, not a good idea. So the fact of the matter is that, you know, the disdain for black people have been around for a very long time, but it started around jealousy, because as you can see, black people have been very fruitful. All right, so that's why they have Planned Parenthood in the ghettos and what have you. All right, and it just never really stopped, because when you look at Jesus, the birth of Christ, okay, when Jesus was born, he had to be born in a manger in a stable. Okay, he couldn't go to like some type of inn or house, because Herod, King Herod, had the people, searching every single house looking for Jesus Christ, because he heard the prophecies and he was terrified of Christ. So they had to hide him. But in this instance here, okay, in this situation, we find the same circumstances was already happening back in the day with Moses, because Moses' parents had to send him on like some leaves or whatever, and this Egyptian lady took him in. She heard him crying, and she took him in and raised Moses in Egypt. But Moses already knew. Moses always knew, and always knew that he was a Hebrew. He never rep that he was Egyptian or anything like that. I mean, you could say he grew up in kind of like the suburbs in comparison to other Hebrews, and he was well educated and what have you, but he always knew he was a Hebrew. What does that show you? Hebrews, all right, though they are black, okay, they are not African, okay? That's two different things. So I just want to point that out there, is that black people, in truth, okay, black is a color, okay? Black is a color. When we talk about race, there's only one race. There is only the human race, all right? Within the human race, we have many different tribes, all right? So, Moses, if he was born in this day, or if Christ was born in this day, people would say, oh, it's a black dude, okay? But the fact of the matter is, blacks don't know that they're Hebrews, okay? So that's what's going on here. Now, it said that the Israelites, all right, were enslaved in Egypt, all right? So when you talk about the 400-year prophecy, Hebrews or Israelites were enslaved in Egypt for 430 years, okay? Now, when we were taken from Egypt, and we were brought across the water, we then, in scripture, it says, I will bring you from Egypt to Egypt by way of ship, and you will never see it again. Talking about you will never see Egypt again, and you will be bondsmen and bondswomen, and nobody will buy you. Now, what does he mean that he's going to take people from Egypt and then back to Egypt, but they'll never see Egypt again? Well, they left the physical location of Egypt, and we traveled and were in bondage in spiritual Egypt, which, if you look on the back of your dollar, there's a pyramid. Okay, now what does the pyramid represent? The pyramid represents Egypt. And what were the slaves doing in Egypt? Okay, they were slaves, and they were mastering in brick and mortar. So that's where you get the basis of masons. That's your pyramid on the back of a dollar. Okay, it's indicated of so-called black people who are Hebrews. All right, Hebrews or black people built the pyramids. The ones that are highly despised, that have a Planned Parenthood on every corner in the hood and what have you. Okay, those people that you despise, they built the pyramids. That's the truth. And it's still a wonder of the world. So let me take the wonder out of it. It's right there in scripture. Okay, you can read Exodus, the first chapter, and it explains that. All right, masonry is about building. Okay, it's about brick and mortar. What was Jesus Christ? Jesus Christ was a carpenter. Okay, now they weren't doing the secret society, type of masonry. They were doing the real masonry that had to do with slave labor, harsh slave labor. Okay, so and when we came to America, black people have been under a yoke in America for 400 years. So 430 years in Egypt and 400 years here in America. So that's your 400 years, okay? So what does that tell you? Okay, while we're highly despised, there are Jews, just like it says in prophecy, there are Jews that claim they are Jews that are not, okay? When Jesus said that he's coming back for his lost sheep, that would tell you that these Jews would not know that they were Jews at all. That's your so-called black people. What is my nationality? Well, my nationality is black. Where is that? Where can I go to it? What nation is black? There is no nation. It's written in scripture that they will be called by names. Okay, so what is your ethnicity? My ethnicity is black. Okay, so what is that? Is that like Asian, or are you Russian? No, I'm just black. Oh, okay, cool. Black is not an ethnicity. Okay, when I'm asked or I had to fill out a job report or whatever, and they say, what are you? I have to put African American. Okay, but I don't have dual citizenship. Okay, the only thing I should circle in is that I'm American, but I can't be American. I have to be African American. So, you know, you can't be born in two places at once, right? So my nationality in truth is just American, but I gotta say that I'm African American. Something to think about. With that being said, I'm gonna show you this clip here of this exploitation film that I seen. And this looks like it's an Asian film. And I watched a little bit of this, it this morning. It's called Prisoner 41. And basically, if you pay attention, when the women got unruly, they forced them under harsh conditions, okay? Slave labor. Now, the women were already in prison. That's indicating slavery, right? And then they had to pull what? They had to pull huge rocks manually, okay? They had to pull huge rocks manually, when you watch the clip, up this hill. And they had kind of like a chain gang, okay? Pulling up these huge rocks, all right? That's echoing all the way back to scripture. And then for the woman who got unruly, okay, if you look at her, what is she attached to? They have her on a tree, right? Jesus Christ, in Acts, it says that he hung on a tree. So, you know, they try to obscure the truth and they try to hide things, but the biggest conspiracy, one of the biggest conspiracies and mysteries there are in this world is the fact that there is an entire people who have no idea, no identity of who they are. So that means that all the kings of the earth, all the rulers, had to get together and make these people's history a secret. Little did these people know that their history was right there in the scripture. All right? That's your so-called black people, the Hebrews. They're the lost tribes, okay? Because when you're lost, you have to be found. Now we live in a day where many people don't believe that they're lost. And that's the pride of the day and age that we live in, is the fact that people have no understanding of themselves or their history, right? Because the history that we get in history class is the fact that, you know, we were just slaves, and then, you know, Abraham Lincoln came along and the Emancipation Proclamation. No. Okay, that's not how things really went down. All right, so I say this to say, man, like, black people's history is in scripture, and in scripture, Christ says, "Know thyself." Something to think about. Peace and blessings be with you all. and the werewolf's name is Jacob, proving the elite know that the true Jews of the lost tribes are specifically black. The bywords of humanity is monkey, and the bestial nature of the fall of man less nuanced and poised than vampires, but woolly and hairy as beasts. It is written that Caribbean brothers are of the tribe of Benjamin, which is the tribe of David, and are as a ravenous wolf. Two words, raven and wolf, meaning they have a temper and are one to be messed with. Again, also in cinematic films, we can talk about like the death of Bruce Lee's son, Brandon Lee. Not only starred in the hit 90s subgenre film called The Crow, but was killed on set by a mysterious blank bullet. The other god that is correlated with CERN, of course, is Cernunnos, who was a horn god. Interpretations of his role vary from seeing him as a god of animals, nature, and fertility to a god of travel, commerce, and bidirectionality. CERN equals Cernunnos equals god of travel, fertility, and commerce. Note that Cernunnos was a horn god, as was the fallen angel Lucifer, whom was originally a cherub, a horned deity like Pan or a Chicago bull, for instance, but now is a red dragon. You can say CERN is like a key that can create doors, and the god of doors is called Janus, a two-headed god which correlates with Gemini. It is written in James unto us to be double-minded and not single-hearted or wholehearted, for God is a sin. James tells the Christians who are double-minded, purify your hearts, ye double-minded, in James chapter 4, verse 8. So that lets you know what's up with Gemini or Janus, who of which is like the Antichrist or the son of perdition, whom is given the power to change both times and laws, as this character is a betrayer, and though man has adversaries, there is one main betrayer, which is the devil, and Judas Iscariot, of which when Christ picked the 12, stated one of the disciples was a devil. Therefore, to be double-minded is to be unstable, uncertain, doubt of which these are the tools of confusion, and the devil is the author of confusion.
Lenny fucked me up.
You can also say that Apollo is the author of confusion, who is correlated with that. In Revelations, he is called Apollyon, the destroyer, whom originally was a cherub as Lucifer, Cernunnos. Lucifer had horns, but changed into a red dragon after he fell, an impostor who abode not in the truth, and whom possesses the doubtful to betray others. Apollo is also the god of light, of which represented the speed the atoms at CERN are collided together. They collide them around the magnets at the speed of light. Okay. The logo of CERN is 666, and the mascot is Kali Ma, the destroyer of egos, which has a connotation to the masculine principle. So you can see the difference in social dynamics of today in reflection to how things were back in the day. Today, alternative lifestyles are growing more and more popular, whereas back in the day, it was not as prominent. This is a weakening of the nations. I'm going to read you Isaiah chapter 14, verse 12. Your pomp has been brought down to Sheol, along with the music of your harps. Maggots are your bed and worms are your blanket. How you have fallen from heaven, O morning star, son of the dawn. You have been cut down to the ground, O destroyer of nations. You said in your heart, I will ascend to the heavens. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. I will sit on the mount of assembly in the far reaches of the north. Apollo is the imposter of the morning star, which is demonstrated in the saying, as above, so below. Apollo is cut down because he represents the tree of good and evil, aka the world tree, also known as the tree of Lebanon, in which all the nations come and do their dealings with, and the iniquity of his traffic is evil. The traffic means his business, his commerce, his world trade. Kali Ma is a deification of Apollo or Apollyon, the divine feminine principle or the mother goddess, which she has a destroyer attribute. The destroyer attribute indicates the chaos of female emotions, if left unchecked, can become exceedingly destructive and unstable, such as antimatter. When they open the portal, when they collide those atoms together, they found that they create tiny black holes, and it creates, on the other side, there is an antimatter, and the antimatter is highly combustible and completely unstable. When they create these portals or doors at CERN, sometimes the antimatter crosses over into our realm, and spirits are highly attracted to this matter. All right. Kali Ma abhors especially the male ego and spiritually destroys masculine principles. Hence, here spoken that the nations are weakened not only by trade, but also in principle, that in the later times it shall be as Sodom and Gomorrah. Nowadays, the masculine principle in a lot of cases are more passive, and we find that females are more masculine in today's times. Thus is the nature of this world has become polarized, as in bipolar or unstable. It is written that a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. To be double-minded has a spiritual correlative to being bipolar, which bipolarity is a spirit of disobedience. In Revelations 9:11 says Apollyon is the angel of the bottomless pit. He receives the key and is the ruler of locusts, which torment men in those times. The verse is Revelation 9:11. What was revealed on 9/11 is the destruction of the World Trade, or the Twin Towers, which were rebuilt later as one tower. Each tower representing 23 chromosomes, which are in a pair of DNA, creates 46. He is known as the principality of the air. I just want you to keep in mind, one pair of shoes, Air Jordans, each shoe has 23 on each foot, which makes a double helix, 2 legs on one body, creating 46. The merging of the divine feminine principle with the earth polarized our energies, and that's the Kali Ma attribute, or the mother goddess attribute. Who is the imposter, you may ask? Apollo is the imposter, who is the accuser of brethren, the god of this age. CERN, the god of commerce, how he is cut down, the world tree of Lebanon, a cedar tree, who binds the world in iniquity and has the ability to change times and laws, a mighty hunter. Okay? He also likes to present himself as an angel of light, Apollo being allegedly the god of light, but his light is darkness. I want you to keep in mind what I said about a double-minded man and being unstable. Chad Wheeler, in recent news, 6'7", 310 pounds, allegedly suffers from bipolar disorder. In recent news, beat and strangled his tiny girlfriend because he asked her to bow to him and she refused. If you pay close attention, that was a man that was possessed with the spirit, a spirit of the Antichrist, which is now rising up in the earth. And this man's girlfriend happened to be an offspring of Jacob. It was not in her DNA to bow to another mortal, even if she was not a Christian. These descendants of Jacob are not predisposed to bow to anyone. In fact, the only reason we are in the current predicament we are in is because we became high-minded and spoiled. God spoiled the hell out of us, and we lost our good sense. So we were taught a lesson that will be pressurized into our blood by a 400-year Yod, that the message resonates in our blood. The only reason other nations have any power over us is because of our sins before the Most High. Therefore, it is not exactly the other gods that imbue other nations, but other nations who deny God are being used for a purpose. They, like Israel, worship other gods while being blessed with God's strength. So unto God, what difference that he used another nation, since we lost our own mind and our soul as a people. So the Lord had to come to smack some sense into us so we could get it together, if you will, and be delivered and saved. God is a sovereign being. Our predicament is more our fault than it is even the devil. These are spirits that abet us in our misdoings that we can never get back home. The world can stay out of order and the unruly can rule. But the simple fact of the matter is, they do not know God or understand, so they are not truly enjoying their role as they may make it seem. It is written, all of creation groans for the Lord to return. But the Lord is waiting for a standard. He is waiting for his people of the lost tribe to set the standard, and the elite know that as long as these lost tribes are out of touch with who they are and out of touch with God,
my favorite view is me covered in you, nothing but my perfume. Oh, I love the taste of you. Turquoise bedroom, crystal clear ocean view. Play some bottle, please do. Yeah, you take me to another time zone without ever even leaving my door. Steady riding to another light though. Oh, I look up and we in my barcode. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay, now.
Still going strong. I'ma pick her up and then it's on. Ain't no neighbors on the top floor, now we in Morocco. Baby cold, I can make a hot dough. Come again, oh you wanna encore? I face your throne, baby girl, daddy's home. 6 zone, going strong.
Yeah, you take me to another time zone without ever even leaving my door. Steady riding to another light goal. Oh, I look up and we in my barcode.
All right, YouTube. Hopefully this will be the last for tonight. I'm sorry. I remember seeing a post, okay, on a brother's channel, which he wishes not to be included in videos, like his name or whatever, but he's bringing up how the target symbol, as you can see, the target symbol is really a mockery, and that the target is making fun of us, targeted individuals, right? And if you see here, it's a target, okay, and it's hitting the bull's eye, okay. Now I want to break this down. Like, let's think about this. The Antichrist in Scripture, okay, you can find this notable of the spirit that was in Nimrod. Nimrod was a mighty hunter, a mighty hunter. Look at the arrow in the middle of that target, who rose up in the land before the Lord, okay? Nimrod was known as the mighty hunter, okay? So if you're a targeted individual and you're a target, you're being hunted by something, right? See right here, target, as in a sniper view, targeted individual, all right? And like I said, this also denotes the same thing as, okay, hold on, same thing as a bullseye, all right? Now, when we think about a bull's eye and the all-seeing eye and what have you, okay, a lot of times we think of let me go here, hold on, bullseye, all right. This is a bull or an ox, and an ox appears as a bull, okay, targeted individual, target, bull, bullseye, all right. And we know that the terminology red, okay, associates with the devil or the Antichrist, all right. And he is known as the mighty hunter, and the all-seeing eye is the bullseye, so to speak, right? So I just want to point out to you how this connotates with the fallen angel by bringing up this commercial here. Look here. This is
Red Bull gives you wings.
all right. Red Bull. All right. Red Bull gives you what? It gives you wings. Okay. Red Bull gives you wings. We know that angels are connotated oftentimes of having wings. Oh, Lord. Hold on one second. Wow. Yeah, they're messing with me, you guys. I lost all of that information. All right. I could play games. All right. So Red Bull gives you wings. All right. See how that denotes to the fallen angel Satan? And also, if I type in here, we just looked at a picture of an ox and how it has horns. It also looks like a bull, right? So let's look at the Chicago Bulls logo. Chicago Bulls, right? Looks like an ox. Looks like that picture of the ox that I showed you, right? So who do we know starred on the Bulls, right? Michael Jordan, right? And the the devil is known as the principality of the what? Of the air. Okay. Principality of the air. And Michael Jordan has Air Jordans. All right. So when we look at Air Jordans, all right, Air Jordans, which represents the number 23, okay, when 23, Air Jordans represents the number 23, and when you wear shoes, okay, when you wear shoes, you wear them in a pair, okay, you wear a pair of shoes. Each shoe has the number 23 on it. 223 represents, 2 23s, 23 plus 23 equals 46. There's 46, let's see what it say. Let's go to all here. In humans, each cell normally contains 23 pairs of chromosomes for a total of 46. All right. So the 23rd pair is the sex chromosome, which differ between males and females. When we think about the image of the beast, like I told you in the spiritual realm, okay, they have both sexes, okay? So one of the reasons why it was abominable for the Lord that angels, dealt with women was the fact that their children were born intersexed, having both sexes, or hermaphrodites, right? So that's not how men was meant to be. So it was not a creation of the Lord. So it was seen as abominable. Okay. On 9/11, okay. On 9/11, we remember.
Evacuate to the hotel. Yeah. Immediately.
On 9/11.
Are you hearing anything?
Ooh, it's loud. On 9/11, each of us remember the Twin Towers. All right. So think about those two pair of Jordans, 2 23s, 23 on each side of the DNA strand or whatever it was talking about. All right. And I'm not showing this to traumatize you, but I'm just saying, Twin Towers, or hold on, let me put it this way: New World Trade Center. All right. So when the World Trade Center fell, you guys, they rebuilt the two centers as one World Trade Center, right? Let me see if I can view this image. They're playing games with me. Good grief, man. What the heck is going on? All right, man. Look, this thing is probably not going to work. But I want you to take a look at this World Trade Center, right? We're still on targeted individuals. I'm going to show you how humanity in whole is a target, and then how we are peculiar as targeted individuals within humanity. All right? So if you look at this World Trade Center, right, it looks like a huge mirror, right? But I want to bring something up to you, okay? Remember, this is the Inhuman
Each cell normally contains 23 pairs of chromosomes for a total of 46. Okay, 46 chromosomes. If you wear a Michael Jordan on each foot, that's 223s. That's 46. That's a chromosome, right? On one individual. So the towers were broke down and rebuilt as one human being. All right. This is the what do you call it? The Masons. What do you call it? You get the divine feminine principle or the divine masculine principle that marriages to either sex, or when they say the heavens, something about the heavens marrying the earth, or becoming complete with the earth, right? So they're trying to merge what's spiritual with what's physical. And what basically happens is, the earth, in terms of numerology, earth represents the number 5, right? Michael Jordan won 5, basketball championship rings. Something to think about. And the principality of the air Jordan, and the World Trade Center looking like this. All right. Now, in one of my, I'm gonna just close those. On one of my original videos, dang, and I really lost. Look, okay, here it is. The World Trade Center. Look, it's merged as one. Okay, it's merged as one. That now the Twin Towers. This is the new World Trade. The two towers are merged as one tower, right? And I just want you to peep game with how things have been moving when I've been putting up videos in the spirit. Look, 223s. That's what I mean. 2 legs on one person. 2 becoming 1. 2 legs becoming 1. That is your world trade. 223s, 46 chromosomes in a cell. Okay. This is alchemy. This is the magic that they're doing, right? 46 chromosomes in a cell. 223s. That's what it looks like when you wear a shoe. You know what I'm saying? This is the alchemy of their witchcraft. People who just really got to get those Jordans and all that, putting all their energy into that, willing to kill for them Jordans, blood sacrifice. Like, this is what we're really looking at. Here it says Jumpman, Air Jordan, right? Principality of the air, right? Red Bull gives you wings. Where all of these, I'm gonna tie all of this together in a second. All right, so I'm gonna close this out, and you're looking at this, and I actually want to show you this actually happened. This is a monolith. Okay, this is a monolith. You could see it in 2001 Space Odyssey, but this one is a real monolith that was in Utah that disappeared the day I put out that first video on this album about AI, the beast system. I posted that video in the early morning of December 1st. And later that day, in December 1st, this monolith went missing in Utah. They couldn't find it. It disappeared, right? I'm going to go to show you this. Look, that mysterious monolith in the Utah desert is gone, officials say. The metal structure has been moved. Utah officials said on Saturday, adding that they had not taken it down. All right, so you have an entire structure that just straight up went missing. All right, this happened after I posted that video about AI, the AI beast system and what have you. All right, look at that. So peep gang. So I guess I got rid of the picture of the monolith. You see this monolith structure right here? It's taller than this dude. It's a huge structure. Look, I'm gonna zoom in. Here's the size of a dude. Here's how big that monolith is. It went missing. All right. Look at the World Trade. All right. It's a monolith, you guys. It's a monolith. So I want you to hold on to that. I know I'm throwing you a lot of information right now. Look, Now it's saying after that, the Romanian monolith has disappeared also, just like the mysterious Utah monolith. Both of these monoliths disappeared after I start talking about AI, the supercomputer, alien technology, and the beast system, and all of that, you guys. Like, real talk, like, these are disappearing, all right? So the first thing you want to think is like, okay, wait a minute, like, is this, dang, man, it did get rid of some of my videos. Look, right here. This is the original video where I'm talking about these type of things. And YouTube be playing, man, because like sometimes I'll tell you the truth, you guys, I will have more likes than views. You know what I'm saying? So they are suppressing your videos and what have you. But this was posted December 1st in the early morning, like just after midnight. And then these structures start disappearing when I'm talking about alien technology and the beast system. Okay. Right here, they talking about Utah monolith mystery explained. But look, it's by Fox News 13. They lying. They don't know what happened to it. Look, Ellen breaks down the monolith mystery. You know she don't know. You know what I'm saying? So this is what I'm talking about, you guys. Like, this is a video on monoliths. You know, people want to know, like, okay, is it alien technology? Is it from space? Well, this is a cartoon from back in the day.
This was a great civilization.
It certainly was. Too bad it's gone. Look, what do you think this was?
It looks like it was part of some machine.
Hey, and this was the other part.
Wait!
Look like one of the Twin Towers coming up, right? Look like that New World Tower. You see what I'm saying? WAS. All right. And you know, in the music industry, they deal with the alien or a so-called demon named WAS. WAAS. But
What I think it was?
in scripture, it says the beast that is, that was, that is not yet, or something like that. To that degree, that's what it says about the beast, meaning that the beast is ever present. You know, it exists, but outside the dimension of time. It's talking about space. Okay, so yes, it is an alien structure right here. This is ancient aliens, the Mars monolith.
Snaps photos of what appears to be a monolith on Phobos, one of the two moons that orbit the planet Mars.
On the moon of Mars, Phobos, there's a very, very interesting obelisk or monolith there. They call it the Phobos monolith. Buzz Aldrin, the second man to walk on the moon.
All right, so that's where we get that from, right? So look, now going back and connecting all of these things to targeting. I looked and I saw a windstorm coming out of the north, an immense cloud with flashing lightning and surrounded by brilliant light. So it's talking about a cloud surrounded by light. The center of the fire looked like a glowing metal, and in the fire was what looked like 4 living creatures. In their appearance their form was human, but each of them had 4 faces and 4 wings. Okay. Their legs were straight, their feet were like those of a calf and gleamed like burnished bronze. Under their wings they had 4 sides, and they had human hands. All 4 of them had faces and wings, and the wings of one touched the wing of another. Each one went straight ahead. They did not turn as they moved. So this structure moved, but it didn't turn. It veered. You know what I'm saying? Their faces looked like this. Each had Each of the four had the face of a human being on the right side. Each had the face of a lion. On the left side, each had the face of an ox. Each also had the face of an eagle. So on the left side, remember that Jesus has people he tells the people to the left of him, depart from him, right? And that on the left is the ox, which has a face like a bull, and Red Bull gives you wings. So we know now that we're talking about, a so-called spirit being is what Ezekiel thought he was seeing, but it says right here, listen. Each appeared to be made like a wheel intersecting a wheel. As they moved, they would go in one of the four directions the creature faced. The wheels did not change direction as the creatures went. Their rims were high and awesome, and all four rims were full of eyes all round about. Okay? So Ezekiel, I can't find it exactly because I'm freestyling this right now, you guys. But he talks about this. He's talking about a UFO, an anti-gravitational structure, and is saying that he's seen it as a wheel inside of a wheel inside of a wheel inside of a wheel. Okay, that looks like your target. Okay. All right. A wheel inside of a wheel inside of a wheel. All right. Inside of a wheel. That looks like a target. But if you look at a target, okay, how much different does a target, okay, and if you look online, this is what they'll show you when they illustrate these things. Because either people are not knowing or they're trying to deceive you, okay, so that you can never picture what this wheel looks like. None of them show you what it looks like. But you guys, when we put all these things together, look, who owns Google? It's a wheel inside of a wheel inside of a wheel. It's a UFO. Speaking of which, none of us really know who owns Google. You know what I'm saying? I guarantee you they're not from planet Earth. All right? But this is like the error page on Google. You get the UFO, right? Look, let me show you this. Look at that. Does that not look like, look at this here. Excuse me. I'm trying to do a wheel inside of a wheel inside of a wheel. And the animals of the creature he's seen was probably spinning inside and he's probably seeing those faces inside of those wheels. And he said that their legs were straight. That's probably the stands that the UFO stands on. Okay? A wheel inside of a wheel. He said it was eyes round about it. Look at those lights around about it. That's what he was talking about. It's a UFO. All right? That's what a chariot is. That's what I was explaining to you guys. Look, a wheel inside of a wheel inside of a wheel. Think of that song. Swing low, sweet chariot. That's a UFO, you guys. So that's your new world trade. It's a monolith. Okay? And when we think about structures, look at this. Now everybody got an Alexa in their house, right? It's a monolith, basically. A mini monolith. A mini idol. All right? And a monolith is artificial technology, part of the beast system. All right? So many of you guys, maybe you remember why, here's an article. Why are statues being torn down by the Black Lives Matter movement? All right? They were tearing down they were tearing down these statues of people. What does God say about making graven images and idols and what have you? But people say like, oh, it's just art, it's just a statue. No, there's more to it, because when we look into what he told Gideon, he says, on that very night, the Lord said to Gideon, take your father's young bull and a second bull, 7 years old, tear down your father's altar to Baal, and cut down the Asherah pole beside it. Then build a proper altar to the Lord your God on top of this stronghold, and with the wood of the Asherah pole you cut down. Take the second bull and offer it as a burnt offering. So you guys, like, with people who are into this occult and rituals and stuff like that, we just can't take it at face value that things are just art. All right? Because God doesn't take it as face value. And, you know, when people was tearing down these statues and things like this of these generals and what have you, you know what I'm saying? On one end, it looks like vandalism, but God would promote, you know, such behavior to tear down. We shouldn't have any type of idols. If he doesn't want any type of thing like that for us to do it now after Christ, you know, most definitely we really shouldn't be having things like this. And I'm not coming from any type of Black Lives Matter movement type of situation. I'm coming from a spiritual element. All right. But yet we have the gall to call ourselves a Christian country. And this is why we're falling like this. You know what I'm saying? I watched a movie recently called I Am Mother, and it was very interesting. It's about an AI training a young girl to raise a new human civilization that the AI brought to extinction. And this film was called Mother. Now, my camera will probably cut out and explaining all of these things, okay? But I just want to show you the trailer to this video. You know, what happens to those blood samples you turn into the doctor and what have you? Cloning and all of this. Think about it.
There used to be. Why did you only make one? Mothers need time to learn. This facility was designed to give humanity a second chance. One that began with you. Daughter. The path will not be easy. The world outside is lifeless. But I made you into the woman that you are so that we could do this together. Mother?
How are you being affected by the contagion outside? Who put that in your head?
Talking about a virus that happened outside. She was asking how was she alive? How was she surviving outside with the virus?
Not mother.
I told you it was dangerous outside. I hope you see that I'm different than her assailants.
Anyway, the video's gonna cut out, you guys, but we've been targeted for a very long time. All right.
Our guest has not been entirely truthful with us. Daughter, I know you're frightened, but you have no need to be. Have I ever done you harm? It's just a matter of time. This woman doesn't care about any future but her own. She's very dangerous. I'm never gonna hurt you. She's a risk we can't take. We can't take. We do now. Trust me. Trust me. Trust me. Daughter, your whole life I've taught you to see the bigger picture. Everything I do is to protect you.
Something to think about. AI taking over.